Okay, so this is my response to the video called Why Jesus Christ is the One True God by the user who calls himself TheAmazingBeliever. Now, I hope the volume control works a little better this time than last time I did this. If it doesn't, then I apologize in advance. Anyway, let's see what he's got to say.
I've been getting a lot of comments, questions, whatever you want to call them, asking me what if I, die and wake up and meet a different God than what I believe in. And I just want to kind of touch on it today, why I am convinced that Jesus Christ is the true God.
Okay. So, what you're trying to show here is not that there is a God, but that the God that exists, if any, is the Jesus Christ of the New Testament. Okay, let's hear it then.
Now, first and foremost, it's clear from history that Jesus claimed to be the Son of God. That's clear.
Whoa, hold it. Hold on right there. Hold it. That's clear from history? Sorry, but if you want to make that outrageous claim, then you had better have some evidence to back it up. Because to the best of my knowledge, the only source for this claim is the Bible. And sorry, that doesn't exactly equate to, quote, history, unquote. Anyway, let's assume that it was clear from history that not only did the character of Jesus as portrayed in the New Testament exist, he also claimed to be the Son of God, whatever that means. Okay, then what?
Now, if you look around the world, there's no shortage of people who will claim that they are God.
Certainly true, but how exactly this helps your cause is beyond me. Let's go on.
But they're clearly not. But see, the fact is, no one believes them, but everyone believes Jesus.
Clearly, this is not true. Now, not everyone believes Jesus today. And if you're talking about the people supposedly there at the time, even if you could establish that the events occurred, which so far at least you clearly haven't, there were still hundreds of people who believed the rebel Barabbas should be freed instead of Jesus, so it should be quite obvious that what you're saying is at best a misrepresentation, and at worst it's an outright lie. There's also another thing I'd like to point out here. You may or may not know of this man. He's alive today. His name's Sun Myung Moon, and he claims to be the Son of God. And you know what's funny? He has thousands of followers who've met him and who believe that he's telling the truth. Now, if he can convince people today that he's the Son of God, in a world where we can communicate at literally the speed of light, where technology can take us to the opposite side of the planet in less than a day, how much easier do you think it would have been to convince people in the Middle East 2,000 years ago? And still, not everyone who met Jesus was convinced by him, according to your own Bible. Anyway, let's move on.
So, you can look at the evidence and look at the 5 E's. There's 5 E's that prove that Jesus is God.
They prove it? You do realize how strong the word prove is, don't you? I can't even prove that you exist, but you can use 5 E's to prove that Jesus, whom you've shown no evidence existed at all, was God, a term which you've so far neglected to define or provide any evidence for the existence of. This had better be good.
First, you have the execution. Christ was clearly dead when they took him down from the cross. There was an article, I'm not sure where, in what magazine it was, but it was these medical people who did a research on the early medical records of when Jesus was crucified. And it was clear that these medical records showed that he was dead before they even thrust that spear in him.
Really? Who did the autopsy? I think you'd best find this newspaper article of yours. I also think you'll find that what they're referring to is not medical records, quote-unquote, but to the words of John chapter 19, verse 34, where it says, quote, "But one of the soldiers with a spear pierced his side, and forthwith came there out blood and water," unquote. This supposedly is an indication that not only did Jesus not have a pulse at the time, but there was massive clotting of the blood, indicating that death had occurred some time earlier. But you see, this is what the Bible says about this. You're making it out to be an independent medical record. Now, I don't know what kind of history lessons you've had, but the kind I've had would indicate that there wasn't a whole lot of forensic pathologists around at that time in Israel to make out any sort of useful report. But maybe that's just me. Anyway, we're going to assume that Jesus died. Fine. Then what?
So, Jesus was clearly dead when they killed him.
No, really?
Now, the second E is the empty tomb. Everyone agreed that Jesus' tomb was empty on the third day.
Everyone in this case meaning all four gospel writers, two of which copied from the third. Right.
Now, the Roman government made up this story that the disciples had somehow, stolen the body, but...
Yeah, what a ridiculous story. Obviously, it's far more likely that he just got up and walked away. Right.
They didn't have the resources or the opportunity to do that.
Really? How do you know? You seem to be making an awful lot of bold assertions with insufficient evidence to build up your case here. I'm pretty sure I could build up a better case than what you've done so far, by referencing only one book other than the Bible, Michael Green's The Day Death Died. You wouldn't happen to have ever read that, would you? Anyway, let's move on.
Third, we have eyewitnesses.
Oh, gods, not this tired old argument again.
There were 515 people that saw Jesus when he was resurrected, and they clearly... And this included skeptics, and people touched him, they ate with him, they did all this stuff. And this was 515 people.
Question. How many people need to be around for someone to write down that 515 people witnessed an event? Answer. 1. You don't have a single eyewitness account. What you have are stories, retellings made 50 years later. Have you ever listened to your grandfather talk about his youth? Right. Moving on.
The fourth is the early records.
Dare I hope for some extra biblical evidence here? Maybe?
Now, see, the creed of the church, the first church that was founded in the book of Acts, the creed of that was made 24 months to 36 months after Christ's death, after he resurrected.
Really? What evidence do you have for this? Oh, right, the book of Acts. In the Bible. Right.
And it claimed that Jesus had risen, and there were it had this list of eyewitnesses who had saw Christ.
Now, bad grammar aside, where do you find this list of so-called eyewitnesses? Or are you merely referring to the list given in 1 Corinthians chapter 15? In which case I'd like to point out that this list also merely states their number as no fewer than 500, quote-unquote, and doesn't give names. Oh, and you're still using the Bible to prove the Bible.
And this wasn't a hallucination, this was reality.
How do you know? Allow me to quote creationists and ask, were you there? Do you have any corroborating evidence for this story? No? What a surprise.
Now the fifth E, the emergence of the church. Now, after they had just killed Jesus, he was hated by Jesus was hated by the society, so...
But wait, didn't you just say that everyone believed Jesus when he said that he was God? So why did they hate him then? I think you gotta work on that internal consistency thing.